Hi guys, Andrea here with the Healthy Back Program. So I wanted to go over inversion tables with you, but first I want to talk a little bit about inversion tables just so that you don't jump into something and then suddenly realize that you were totally unprepared for this. If you wonder if an inversion table is right for you, then I suggest going down to a place like Big Five or any of those type of places, Shields, Cabela's, any type of big sporting goods place that may have workout equipment, and try one out. There are some there that are usually on the floor and available to try out. Absolutely don't do that by yourself. Make sure you have somebody with you, because if you don't know what you're doing, you can get stuck and or hurt pretty easily. So number one, that's what I say, is if you're unsure and you want to see and have an idea about what an inversion table might be like, then definitely go try one out. Otherwise, once you've bought one, and there's a variety of them out there, and you can spend a significant amount of money on them, and you can spend a not significant amount of money on them. I think for this one, and I've had this one about 8 years, I think I spent $250 at Big Five. So there are cheap versions available that are just as good as the most expensive ones. So don't get caught up on that, but you definitely want to make sure that when you are looking at purchasing them, that you find one that is sturdy, that it looks like it can manage, you know, your needs as far as being able to fold it up, being able to move it around your home, being able to maneuver it, you know, if you have to pull it out to use it, that kind of stuff. You want to make sure that you can do all of that. So that's why I recommend going to the store. So one of the things with the inversion tables is you just need to make sure that, you know, you're not getting into this and your body can't handle it. And what I mean by that is there's some things that are not recommended if you have these type of ailments to consider an inversion table. Number one is if you have a detached retina, if you're having trouble with the backs of your eyes in any way whatsoever, you should not be on an inversion table. If you have uncontrolled glaucoma that, you know, is progressive, or any type of issues where pressures in your eyes are not good and that's not being controlled by drops, you should not use an inversion table. If you've had a recent head injury, a recent spine injury, you should not be on an inversion table until that inflammation and swelling have gone down and you've talked with a medical provider about that. If you have had a recent stroke, or you have uncontrolled blood pressure, you may not want to get on an inversion table. The other thing you might want to think about is people that have back issues, such as herniated discs. This may or may not be good for you. If you've recently had back surgery, you don't want to be on an inversion table until, number one, you've had at least a minimum, I would say, a minimum of 10 to 12 weeks recovery post-op before you even consider an inversion table. And even then, you'd want to get that cleared with your medical provider that was going to be okay if there's a new fusion or that kind of stuff. Herniations can sometimes be worsened by inversion tables. So if you have a disc herniation, just be really cautious and go very slowly to make sure that your body can handle that kind of stress. The other thing they recommend is that, you know, if you have problems where you're having easily broken bones, so significant osteoporosis, because you're hanging by your ankles, so your weight's being pulled by your ankles, but if you've also had fractures in your back, you might want to be careful about doing this, and again, start very slowly. So for the purposes of this demonstration, I have this inversion table set to a 20-degree angle, and that's just for demonstration purposes. I normally myself will hang at a 60-degree angle. And then people ask me, well, how long do you hang? And the reality is that when you get on an inversion table, you have to build up a tolerance to it. Remember, your body is used to having gravity pulling this way, pulling down. All of the pressures of fluid and the weight and all of that, your body is designed to be holding it upright against gravity. So all of the pressures in our body are forced down, are pulled down by gravity and weight pushing it down also. And so when you flip that whole system upside down, your body has to adjust to suddenly, your organs shift. That kind of will pull up into your chest a little bit. Your lungs will shift up a little bit. You'll feel the blood rush to the top of your head because the blood is normally down in the feet, and our bodies are more used to having to maintain the blood in our feet, and that's what our heart is for, is to pump it back up from the feet back up the heart. So it's easier in many ways for you to be upside down because your body is able to move fluids in ways that it normally has to use a lot of energy and or fight against gravity to do. For a lot of people, inversion tables help provide a sense of relief. For myself, because of the degenerative disc disease, the narrowing of the discs between my vertebra, because of the pain of all of my body having to compensate for my hips being off and my back being off, what I find is inversion tables help provide that sense of being, that sense of lifting, that sense of growing, that sense of creating space to allow things to reset, to readjust. When you get ready to begin doing the inversion, you want to build up to this. You don't want to be thinking that you can hang for 5, 10, 15 minutes at the first go, because that is just not the reality for most people. Most people will be able to do about 10, 15, maybe 30 seconds, and then they'll be done. And when that pressure in your head gets to be too much for you, when you're that pressure in your eyes, or you're just not comfortable being upside down, maybe the pressure in your ankles from hanging, or the pressure in your knees, then that's time to stop. You need to listen to your body. This is something you build up to. For myself, I can hang about 3 to 5 minutes depending upon the day, and then I'm all done. And so for some people, they may be able to hang for up to 15 minutes. And generally the recommendation is you don't need any more than 15 minutes. And this is just allowing gravity to pull you in the opposite direction and allow some space to be created. If you have knee problems or ankle problems, or you've had recent knee or hip replacements, or fusions in your ankles, get permission about getting on an inversion table from your physicians just to make sure they're okay with that. Now, obviously, if you have a hip replacement or a knee replacement and they've healed, then that's a different story. When you've been released to full activity, then that's a different story. My husband has both knees replaced, and he uses the inversion table, but he can't use it very long again because he gets some discomfort in his knees from it. So let's get into getting on the table and how this situation works. Okay, so here's my inversion table. And one of the things you need to be aware of when you have an inversion table is how to adjust it. And there's multiple adjust points that you need to be aware of. Some of them, such as this one, are about how far over you want to invert, either a 20, 40, or 60 degree angle. And if you have never inverted before and this is your first inversion table, start with 20, start low, and figure out that right amount of decline in order to get that pull on your back. Some inversions have handles that you reach up to. This one does not. However, it does have nice handles to be able to get a hold of it and help invert yourself. So the first thing you want to be aware of is when you are working to adjust this. My height is 5'4.5". When you're looking at this is not related to how tall you are. We're really looking at where is your center of gravity in order to pivot over this bar area on the table in order to get the weight to pull you that way. And so for me, I find that between 5'7" and 5'8", I have a nice ability to control the inversion table with my arms, and that's part of what finding the right the right distance on this, because what happens with this is the longer the distance here, the more weight you're going to have in your feet. The further or the closer you bring those feet up, meaning the less length you have here, it pushes your center of gravity up on the table. So this is something you need to adjust and play with. You want to make sure you have somebody that can help you get this adjusted. The other thing you need to figure out is how to get into this. And I find that getting into it backwards, meaning actually stepping into it backwards. So if we hold it like this, I would actually step into it backwards, such as this. And I do this with shoes on. Some people don't do it with shoes on. I find it more comfortable on the tops of my feet to have shoes on. But once you get in these, then you want to make sure that you use this adjusting to really lock in your feet so that you don't feel like you're going to slip out. And that's really important. All right, so if we step in backwards, make sure that we get locked in. I've readjusted this because my height is 5'4" and a half. I have readjusted this so that my sweet spot is right about the 5'8" mark. If I do 5'7", it starts getting easier for me to get my weight back, but it becomes harder for me to get my weight forward in order to get back up. And so you really need to find a sweet spot when you're using inversion tables. So with this one, I have to work to get myself started a little bit. So again, and that may be related to the cost or the expense that I put into this, but that's okay. I don't have to work very hard. And once I get to a relatively level point, once you're level, it's okay to wait at this point to let your body get used to this. And I literally am holding this, but remember I talked about the arms and being able to maintain. You can balance with your arms. And so this is how you know you've got your center of gravity balanced and that you're balanced on the table. But as soon as I move my arms and start to shift that weight a little bit, you'll see that the table begins to move. So now I come down, and again, this is not a huge decline angle for me, but as I decline, gravity begins to pull me toward the floor. And you need to let that pulling happen. Sometimes I find that I get a little bit caught up, I get a little bit caught up in my hips on the table. So sometimes I might give myself a little push, a little pull. I might do a little twist and a little twist and reach over my head toward the floor and just take some breaths and let my feet try to relax. And again, I feel this in the tops of my feet and behind on top of my heels, back behind there. But it's comfortable, I'm used to it, and I can relax into this. As you get to the point where you're done, when you have somebody helping you change your direction, you need to make sure that they pull you down slowly. If you're at a point where your arms are not being much help, you need to make sure, again, that you have a table close at hand where you could reach a phone, or if you could reach the floor, which I can't from this angle, or you begin working on having some arm strength. And you want to make sure that whatever the distance on the table is, that you set up the 5/8 distance, that it enables you to grab a hold of the handles and not have to really jerk yourself up. So you want to be able to easily get up, more easily get up than get down. So if I have to push myself over a little bit at this point to get down to this, that's fine. But I still want to be able to easily, from whatever decline I'm at, to just grab a hold with not a lot of force. I mean, I'm using my fingertips, so it's not a lot of force that I'm having to exert here to get myself up. When you come up again, you want to try to go slowly. You don't want to just, like slam yourself up, because again, your body has to readjust to all those pressures, resettling back down. A lot of times I find the inversion table is a nice place once I'm up to do a forward bend and stretch out my low back one more time, because my legs are at an angle where I can just sit backwards comfortably and lean over and then just kind of hang, and this helps keep my legs straight, so I'm not having to try to fight and focus on that and try to reach down and touch my toes and relax as low as I can. Remember, you're still always looking for that balance between I'm okay and I can breathe, and not getting past that I'm not okay and I can't breathe in anything you do. I hope that this has been helpful. Remember, inversion tables are meant to be a tool. I use mine most often when I'm having a lot of pain, where I'm feeling crunched in my sacrum, in my hips, where I'm having some pain. I'll get on this and use this as one of those layers to help myself with managing the pain that I'm in at that moment. I also find that I like to do this just to help with maintenance and just keeping that pressure releasing, that giving my body just a break for a few minutes in a reverse gravity situation. So I hope this has been helpful for you. I will see you in the next instructional video.